Hello, 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 pubbers. Welcome to the office hours. Let me put some stuff up real quick. Pub. Oh, right. Let's do some points real quickly because you guys are here. Boop. Are you guys just being here? Let's do bad boy. That one down. What's up? Forest Dweller. How's it going, man, as well? Been stable all day. Been able to do cargo runs while conference for work. Not bad. Yeah, I haven't had too many issues today. Yesterday I had a bunch of issues while I was trying to record for my smuggling tutorial, which is taking me a little bit longer than I thought. It's going to definitely come out tomorrow, but because I got the recording done today and I got a bunch of film and I was like, oh shit, I got to do an entire like combat area. So when I'm done with this, I'm going to go back and edit that as well. Let's get to the office, shall we? There we go. Wait. Office. Office. Hello and welcome to the office, guys. Hey, Fox, Dano, Dell, Lolf, Jellyhead, Cupan, Sage, Devil Dog, Forest Dweller as always. Welcome, guys. In the launcher, did you have to log in with the email with your handle like normal? Yeah, like with my handle like normal. Yeah. Welcome to Galactic Historian Office Hours, guys. Or as I might change the name again, though I like it right now, which is Galactic Historian Live, just because that's what Maddie called it, and I like that. Galactic Historian Live. Though I mean, it's Office Hours works because we talk about Star Citizen, we talk about lore, we talk about the game, we do lots of stuff like that. So, whew. What time is it in the UK? Like 1 a.m. Yeah, a little bit later probably. So how did the copyright notice hit you? None at all, Devil, because I regularly go through and purge my clips pretty routinely. And because I don't play copyright music except for Fridays, I was generally okay. Though it does mean that I'm going to have to start thinking about cutting out things like the parties. We'll see. But I'll definitely go through clips regularly and purge them. Hey, Chris Hawkins. 3 a.m. in France. So it's probably like 3 a.m. in Europe, too, in the UK as well. Login Star Citizen. I saw you dropping my name there, 890, on some Reddit post. I got pinged by the info runners. They're like, Paul, they're talking about you. It's like, oh, okay. Because you talked to, it was like Execute. Because you had mentioned Execute and you also mentioned the Astropub. I was like, oh, yeah. Here we go. Retweet and spread the love, guys. You guys get a chance to. We are still giving away a Cutlass, courtesy of CIG. That's ending, I think, Friday or Saturday. This Friday or Saturday. And then we're also giving away a new Prospector. So if you guys want to get involved in the Prospector, !June. I'm going to double check to see if that is active currently. Timers. Does it still say May? It's going to be. It still says May. All right, let's fix it. Let's fix that right now. All right, June. MISC Prospector. Not there. Go to clean. Thought I set up the I did everything right except for the commands. June Puppy Boy. There we go. Hopper. I'm going to be doing, we changed things around a little bit. So we're going to be doing, you have to be following us on YouTube, you have to be following us on Twitch, and you have to be following us on Twitter. So those are the three things you have to do, all free. So, there we go. It should be fixed now, guys. I would have been live yesterday, but I ate cheese and a lot of ranch because we had some homemade like burgers and such, and at least twice I was like, oh nope, that was a mistake, that was a mistake. I'm lactose intolerant. Luckily it's not too bad, but yeah. All right, so let's go to the actual Patreon. Do want to thank our latest Patreon, Doctor, who is who's pledging at $100 level, which is an absolute mad lad. Thank you for that. And as always, we'll be doing shout-outs and stuff like that. Let's see if any questions. Aha, here we go. Ken Lord asks, is there any in-lore explanation about why Aegis ships are so wildly inconsistent stylistically? They have some sleek ships like the Saber, some nice soft lines, but some others stuff looks basically like flying bricks. What gives? Aegis is an incredibly old brand, and unlike RSI, Aegis doesn't recycle or drop away its ships. So like RSI will come out with new ships every 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and their old ships they just stop making and disappear. Aegis, because they're a military manufacturer, they make a ship for the military, and then it comes, the military continues to use it for hundreds of years with slight tweaks. You can think of it as the difference between, you know, Lockheed Martin's, or Boeing and, you know, doing civilian aircraft, versus Lockheed Martin doing, or Boeing's, I guess Boeing does military research, but like Boeing versus Lockheed Martin. Lockheed doing its fighters, Boeing doing civilian aircraft. Boeing might have some very different looking designs when it comes to its civilian stuff because they don't always stick around. Whereas an F-15 is going to look like an F-15 for a long time because it's sticking around for a little bit longer. That is this is entirely based off of my understanding of the lore. Because RSI churns through designs all the time. And Aegis tends not to be. I mean, the Retaliator is 500 years old in terms of its design. The Gladius is something like 400 years old. Same with like the Nautilus. They're all very old designs. The Idris was built after the First Avaran War. It's a very old style of ship. So if they build a ship, that's it. That kind of thing. They build it and then they will stick with it for a while. And you also notice that the blocky style ships from Aegis tend to be non-military style. Even the Idris is much more, and the Javelin are much sleeker ships than, say, the Retaliator. I'm not Retaliator, the Vulcan or the Reclaimer, who are both support style ships. So, hey, Spirian. Nice, Spirian, nice. Cutlass Black is 1.4 million is what it is. Morning, Aimless. If you guys aren't following board, you should. If you're here, you're probably following Board Gamer. We've had an crazy. We reached 5,000 subscribers on Twitch, on YouTube. I wish we had $5,000 subscribers on Twitch. I would be a very, very happy man. 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're at over $200 a month on Patreon, which is insane. And we're not going to do a Galactic Historian episode this week. I'm instead focusing on my in-game filming skills and trying to work on that a little bit. And so that's a thing. And I'm doing a tutorial for smuggling. So the smuggling tutorial is going to be kind of like basics of what a smuggler should look for and how a smuggler should act right now in Star Citizen, and then the tutorial for the smuggler's triangle. So it's like a beginner's guide to smuggling. And I expect people to be screaming at me afterwards. Paul, why'd you give up our secrets? Go through some of this real quick. On the multi-tool, I wish they got to the Imperator level. Oh yeah, the multi-tool colorings is kind of weird. I have no idea what to do with it. For some reason, I want a Nautilus. Nautilus looks cool. Opinions on the new subscriber loot. That's the multi-tool colors, right? Maybe it's a prelude to skins, so we can have different colored guns. Oh, we already have that. I don't know. They got what they got. Send you more of my notes. Do you think CIG may be trying to do a 1-week sale each month now? No. CIG's smart enough to know that if they did something like the Imperator or Invictus launch week every month, it would have diminishing returns in terms of the money making. Children at the orphanage, exactly. It's all about helping the poor orphans. The poor orphans. There's one orphan named Etam. He's just having the roughest time. But Slam's the hardest one to try to get adopted. What is this Alien Week all about? As far as I understand, likely it's more about going to be about the alien cultures and their language, because we've got a bunch of stuff that's coming out with the aliens in the near future. I'm thinking about spoilers. I know spoilers about which aliens are in Squadron 42 and which aren't. But I'm not gonna say it. But I'll just say that there are aliens in Squadron 42. Spoiler. I'm sorry if you couldn't tell by the trailers. So they may be trying to kind of flesh a lot of that stuff out. It also seems like they're fleshing out more of the universe. I mean, even the ISC this week is seems to have a little bit more of the discussion on fleshing out fleshing out Stanton, those areas. So. Would anyone here recommend subscribing / any hopes for news in the BMM during the Alien Week? No. Vandal are in Squadron 42. I think that's what they're doing on Star Citizen Live. If they're doing an Alien Week. Oh, I didn't think about that. I don't remember them talking about the Alien Week, but if they're doing an Alien Week, it's obvious for sales. Board, help me out. I'm drowning. I haven't been paying attention that much. I've been kind of like waiting for 310 to mature to a PTU status. To even go into even go into the other one. Citizen. We go back to the Star Citizen website and see what's going on. Good luck, you guys get a chance to. Sean, thanks for that follow on Twitter. Soon, TM, probably. Question, what do you think about letting players vote for the Imperator? I think it's a good idea. I like it. I like it a lot. The thing about CIG is that CIG could just take your vote and not care. That's the advantage of how CIG does things. They can give you the illusion of choice and just be like, "Hey, players really like this one candidate, and we were thinking about this candidate possibly winning anyways, so let's just have him win," kind of thing. How excited am I for Theaters of War? All right, so for those of you guys who don't know, I am a mad fan, huge fan, mega fan of Battlefield 2142. It was one of my favorite games of all time. Titan mode, oh, so good. So many fun memories of that game. They stopped supporting it. I think it's still up, but I don't play it just because I don't have time. But like I remember playing it for hours. It was so fun. And then no future-themed Battlefield-style games existed pretty much after that. There was a couple of them that tried, but they weren't really the same. So I feel like Star Citizen would be the closest one to it. So when I say this, note that it's not... I don't hate the idea. I just am afraid that CIG is going to push it too soon because they don't care. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they mature it a little bit. I hope that, you know, they can... Here's an excuse, Sean Tracy. You need the tonk. The tonk needs to be in game. It's a huge important part about balancing the game. And the G12 is also very important, so you need to have both those in the games. So that could delay the game release a little bit so you can work on it. To get the client to network server refactor in at the very least. I'm voting for the AI lady in hopes that she'll get advanced AI later on. Yeah, that's true. She is still running, isn't she? I'd probably vote for... I'm going to vote for the transitionalist. Just because I like the idea of bringing the Tavaran into the UEE more. Exactly, Devildog, exactly. You should have more fleshed out experience. I also, like, one of the things I'd really like them to do is to have testing when it comes, like, public testing of it during a PTU. Not saying, like, it's not releasing this patch, like in 3.11, have a public test of it saying, it's not releasing this patch, it's releasing, you know, soon. But people can play it on the one map, give feedback, figure out what's going on like, first wave PTU or, you know, something like that. And then pull it back. You know, first wave or second wave PTU or when open PTU, but only this weekend. You know, like PTU's open for this day to this day, just Theaters of War, play it. Then send the feedback back, work on it, and release Theaters of War with 2 or 3 maps. And I'm going to give you guys a preview of something I already wrote, which I'm going to record and release as a Galactic Historian, which is 5 different battles and lore which they could do for Theaters of War. They've already done the Crossroads of Crime, which is the current one they're working on, which takes place in the Nexus system during the Battle of Nexus. The next one could be the... there's no name for this location, but it's a small moon. Think Delamar. It might be an asteroid, but something like Delamar. A pirate base existed on the border between Xi'an and human space. And they were able to find it. Normally they would do an orbital strike, but the orbital strikes, they wanted to possibly capture information, if not the pirates themselves, to find more information. So, this was the first test of the Hercules M2. So they sent the M2 in with Nova tanks and with Nova tanks and with the Marines, attacked the pirate base, captured it, and brought back information. So, hear me out. Space infiltration with an M2. Your M2 is your mothership. It carries tanks, or is a spawn zone for tanks. You have some fighters that are escorting it. You fight your way into the base, land the M2, and then it starts the second phase where you are able to spawn out of the M2 and go towards the enemy base. and then goes to which is kind of more like on ground and in space. And then third is inside the actual base, which is, CQC, CQB kind of combat while someone's trying to hack the pirate database to collect all the information. Boom. Just kind of like a reverse of what they have with the Crossroads of Crime. That's an actual historical event that happened. It would just be a little tweaked because they actually surprised the pirates and didn't know they're coming. But it tests out the M2, the Tonk, and it does all the same things but in reverse order. There's 2 right there, CIG. You're welcome. I wouldn't say it's a proper drop ship. I'd say it's more like a troop transport. It's like those troop and material transports that the Merchant Marines and the Marines have that have like the big open, like that opens the front up and just drive tanks out. Hey, sci-fi. It's a Tonk. Nova Tonk. Tanks are just Tonks in the future. That's all it is. Why do I say they don't care about it? Well, one of the things I fear about the Theaters of War being released too early is that its purpose isn't to really be a game mode, but to be a testing platform, so they can use it for initial testing and then they abandon it. Because that's what they did with Star Marine. It's what they did with Arena Commander. I don't want that because that's waste of effort. It helps the development, a little bit, but then it wastes effort down the line. You basically have an abandoned mode. This is the last chance CIG has for this. If they pull this again, I'm not going to play it. They come out with, attack the Idris mode in Theaters of War. If they've already abandoned Theaters of War or something like that, like something that to that degree, I'll just be like, cool, I'm not playing it. You're just going to abandon it 15 minutes after you do it. You're just going to get it for like the 1 week or 1 month of content that you can get out of it, and then just abandon it like they did with everything else. So that's the issue. Can of Death, yes. Thoughts on the Redeemer?
I hate the Redeemer. I hate it so much.
So much. I hate those engines. I just hate everything about it.
I hate the Redeemer.
Why is that? Because I hate the engines, but most of my let me put my old man hat on. I have one around here.
Back in my day, there's this thing called the Next Great Starship. But Star Citizen, it was a way CIG can hire new Crytek developers because they were looking for more people. They didn't have a lot of people, and they needed more people to hire who had experience with Crytek, so they did a little competition to make another starship for them. You got a lot of people who work there now who worked on that competition. A lot of people who actually designed their ships in Star Citizen today, I tell you what. But there were so many good ships that were designed that did not get voted because they were not good at marketing as much as the people who made the Redeemer. And the Redeemer is the one who won, just because it was pretty good at marketing, not because it was an actual good ship. It was completely built out of scale. It looked like a Gundam had sexual relations with a goose, and I want to throw it in a fire.
That's my reason. It's an irrational hatred. but it's still a hatred. Voting, so like the third place one should have won. The second place one was really bad. Like, I don't know how it got in there, but because the third place one was a Drake ship, a lot of people were like, Drake. And at the time, the Aegis bias was real amongst fans. I mean, it still is, but it was like really real back then. So they were smart to make it Aegis. It was really good. Like, the team did a really good job with it. That's all I'm gonna say. Oh, I thought it was going to get more of a redesign than it's currently getting. Hey, Solarburn. I have no intention of playing Storm Marine Commander or Theaters of War. If it helps the game development, great. It does not. Oh well, big time sync, nothing more. More interested in Squadron 42 rolling out the door and how Star Citizen is going to further expand to incorporate every imaginable career gameplay loop and its performance. I agree, Steve, but I can also see that Theaters of War would be important for balance, even in Squadron 42, because in Squadron 42, I'm assuming you're going to have combined arms warfare where you're going to have to participate in, and they want to make it so you're not totally overpowered or underpowered in certain levels. So, thank you, Nicholas. That's probably going to be if I make a shirt, a Galactic Historian shirt, it will just say F the Redeemer. That'll be my one and only meme shirt for Galactic Historian. F the Redeemer. What do you think about think on the thruster in front of the Freelancer's engines? What about it? They're similar to the thrusters on the Cutlass, front of Cutlass engines. Do they still have the pages for those? For the voting? No, I don't think so. There's definitely, they were up in the old forums. They might be archived in the forums, the old forums. I like to see a place where in the verse there is constant war on planets, missions to be given to drop at NPCs in battle. Oh yeah, it exists in game. It exists in lore. It's called the Chiron system. There's the Chiron Civil War has been going on for years, off and on. Two nations on the planet have been going to war with one another, both human. The planet was once part of the UEE. They're the only planet that withdrew its membership from the UEE, and they did so after the end of the Meser era. And the two major nations on the planet have been going to war with one another since. I mean, yeah, a lot of the stuff in Star Citizen has to do with marketing, but you got to remember that with the Redeemer was done by a fan team, not by CIG, and that fan team did a really good job at marketing their stuff to the community. They learned that people like Aegis, they like slick trailers, they wanted a ship that could do everything. They wanted an I win button. So they made a briefing room, they made a drop bay, they made multiple turrets, they made a coffee maker and a kitchen, and the actual cockpit, and the ability to hold cargo. Like a crane that could hold cargo. They basically made an I win ship out of it. And everyone was like, yes! Oh, bravo, bravo! And now CIG has to nerf half of that because it doesn't work. It's out of scale, it doesn't fit in the size. They were smart, which made me angry because there were other really good ships. The Drake Brutus was just really cool. It would like take a Buccaneer and a Cutlass, and they have a dropship baby. Or I'm sorry, not even a dropship baby. It was like a gunship baby. So the I win idea is that it's essentially it does everything. It does everything that somebody wants. So like no one has to buy any other ship. That was the idea. What's the latest news? New stuff in Star Citizen. Latest new what's there, Solithern? No redemption here. Yeah. Do you think the new ground mining vehicle will make mining more accessible, fun? If it actually comes out. I know there's a lot of like rumors and that kind of stuff. I constantly warn people that like you get something from the Leaks Discord is fine, but if there's no proof for it, take it for what it is. I'm always reminded of the image that was floating around of Pyro 1. Everyone's like, this is the leaked image of the planet of Pyro 1 planet right before CitizenCon, and it turned out just to be an image of Mustafar. But a bunch of people ran with it and posted news about it all over Star Citizen. So, you know, like, be cautious. Don't get your hopes up, guys. It's fun to speculate, but remember that unless you have absolute evidence for it, I wouldn't necessarily run with it. For another season of Atlas RP. Nice, man. Hey, Arius. Redeemer. If we made a Cutlass black, but not out of paper, basically. TK Shadowban. Question. Since the light of Alien Week, any other events in lore with potential sale involved? I mean, I've heard the rumors of the Talon, which is, I believe, the Tavaran Light Fighter, which would also match up with, would match up really well with what CIG talked about at the last CitizenCon. Because last CitizenCon, they did talk about a Tavaran Light Fighter as one of the options they had. It was a refining ship, the Tavaran Light Fighter, and there was like one or two other things. I think one of them might have been the ground mining ship vehicle or something like that. But it was talked about in a panel that wasn't broadcast. Anything? What's the last time you watched anything with Star Citizen Solitary? Because there's been a lot. They've added prisons, they've changed some of the dynamics, some of the stuff around. They've added Cutlass Blue. They added a new landing zone. They're about to add bars into the game next patch. They're changing up combat, improving it, hopefully, including like turrets. They're adding dragging mechanics into the game. There's a ton of stuff they're doing. A lot of stuff is back end, though. If there's a new alien ship during the Alien Week, I hope it's the Xi'an Cargo Hauler. That was another one that they've talked about in the past, was the Xi'an Cargo Hauler or the Xi'an Bomber. It might have been the Xi'an Cargo Hauler is the other one they talked about. Can you buy just the Terrapin and just see it available in UAE Exploration Pack? You may only be able to do that at sales there, Spirian. Question, I have a lot of sympathy for Tavaran. Do you think they could recover as a species and coexist, especially with humanity? Yes. That is the whole... So there's two major movements into Tavaran culture. There's the rebuild movement and the integrate movement. The rebuild movement is at an exterior location where there's a huge settlement of Tavaran outside X-Tavaran on the one jump away from the Tempest system where the synth world's being built. And they live on a planet of just nothing but storms. I can't remember the name of the system, and I have to look it up. And then you have Jalan, which is the home world of the Tavaran, where the rest of the next largest, if not larger, population of Tavaran live. That is where the movement for integration has begun. It's spearheaded by people like Suj Kosi, who is the current senator from Jalan. His belief is that if he can get the Tavaran to sign up for the military, to enlist in the military, then they can get citizen status. And if they can get citizen status, if enough of them can, they can start swaying votes. So politicians will start to pander to them. And since the Tavaran have a long history of martial combat, of fighting in the military being part of their culture, he's essentially trying to reform the old Rijora kind of ways without saying Rijora, because that's outlawed. And they burned all the regional texts, so no one knows what that does, or very few do. They're trying to harness that spirit and use that as a means for the Tavaran to become part of the UEE. Because right now, a lot of Tavaran serve in punishment battalions in the UEE. Essentially, instead of signing up to fight, they get a choice of either fighting or going to jail. And as far as I can tell, punishment battalion service does not guarantee citizenship. You don't actually get citizenship if you were given that option. You, I think, are stuck there for life, possibly, or you can retire, but you may not get citizenship. It's not always a guarantee like volunteering is. So what Suj is trying to do, what Suj Kosi is trying to do, is he's trying to encourage Tavaran to sign up, because in his mind, that's the one path to rebuilding the Tavaran people. You know, it's all about the Tavaran. It's the feathers. Need more feathers. They need more feathers all the time, baby. Question: do you think the significance of the mantis footer image with that whole "you should see them feast" line in the subscriber update today? What? Hey, Sager. Thank you, Sagerman. Enjoy it. I've set it up so that the beginning of the playlist is like the things you need to know, probably the most important things to know. And then everything else is just kind of random, so you just kind of like go through it as your own pace. Thank you for watching this, Sager. All right, so let me put this in the chat real quickly. I'll put this in the top pinned comment on the video itself. If you're watching this from home, you should see down there at the top pinned comment. The Prospector giveaway. That should have the stuff you need. And of course, if you guys are supporting, if you're watching us on I roll my head back and forth. I roll my head back. If you're watching this from home and you're watching this on YouTube, if you go to the main page on YouTube, like in the very front page, you'll see there's a little link for our Patreon. So make sure you guys sign up if you guys are interested in helping out. As little as $5 a month helps me out. If you guys are watching on Twitch, subscription as well available. I just always like to point that out because people always ask, like, how can I help? I'm like, those are the easiest ways. They're just really simple, easy to do. Most people know how to do a Patreon. If you haven't already done so, you can set up through PayPal and stuff. It's pretty easy. The music is a little loud right now. Okay, I can turn it down a little bit. Utho likes to play his music loud. Do they consider basic target acquisition and tracking AI in Star Citizen Universe? No, it's less AI and more assistance. So essentially, the way to think about this is that there are 3 types of AI that exist in our current reality. Our reality here on Earth, 2020, that's on fire and everyone's dying. That Earth. We have three types of AI. We have the current AI that we work with right now, which is like learning AI or AI that specializes in one specific thing, like algorithms. YouTube has that algorithm which it uses, which is an AI-based system. Then you have sentient AI, which is human-level AI. And then you have super AI, something that's like super above humans' capability of computing and that kind of thing. And in Star Citizen Universe, those last 2 are not achievable. They've never made they have made human level AI before, and it went crazy. So they've never made the super one. They have made human sentient AI before, and it went bad. So that's outlawed. But you still can make AI that we have today, assisted AI. So something like a target prediction computer or calculator, those kind of things. Those kind of things still exist. Well, Del, the thing about the reason why they're doing this, the fighters for the Tavaran would be because it fills out the alien roles in Star Citizen. And because the Tavaran aren't a separate species, like the Xi'an or the Banu or the Vanduul, in terms of outside of space, the only place you would find Tavaran fighters would be in human space. Replicas. What races would be tolerated in the Stanton system? Everyone but the Vanduul. Banu, Xi'an, Tavaran, they all existed in the Stanton system. In fact, the Xi'an visited ArcCorp, and they mentioned that it's the closest that they've ever seen humanity get to their forge worlds, or the factory worlds. Because Xi'an have these huge worlds which are dedicated to like one production, or dedicated to one type of production. So one world might be just making tanks, or one world might just be making military equipment. And that's its sole purpose. So everyone on that world makes that one thing. And so the Xi'an have actually gone away impressed with ArcCorp. But we know that the Xi'an have been to ArcCorp, visited it, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the language, a lot of the writing you see on the signs around ArcCorp, that's Xi'an. So at least in terms of how they're building things, in the future, you'll probably see a few Xi'an, Banu, and Tavaran walking around the landing zones in Stanton. I wouldn't be surprised. It's pretty close to Terra. It's one jump away from Terra, which is close to the Xi'an border. And then it's also fairly close to the Banu border, so you can see a lot of those. Do you think the Banu Defender will attach onto the Merchantman as a turret? Maybe not as a turret, but it probably is a carrier. But Death Factor, do you think what do you think the significance of the Mantis footer image with the whole you should see them feast line subscriber update from today? I have no idea. That does not, maybe they're selling some Mantis variants? I don't know. Question, are there any intermingled species in the Star Citizen universe? Like cross species? No. You can't have like hybrid human Xi'ans or Banu Tavarans. You can't do that. As far as we know, that doesn't exist. Different evolutions. What race would you want to be and why? Well, human. We can try. There's a couple of, I wouldn't be surprised if there are Banu and Tavaran and Xi'an spouses for humans and vice versa. I wouldn't be surprised if a Banu was, married to a Xi'an. You got to remember that, the Banu are like a non-binary species. They do not have male or female. All the Banu are just Banu. So they choose which partner is the male and which one's the female when they try to have children. So there is no gender in the Banu, and they're both sexes at once. They're intersex. So there's no binary like that whole concept doesn't exist in Banu culture. But whereas Xi'an is very much more like humanity in many ways. We know more about the species living in Xi'an space that aren't spoken about out of shame. The Santuk. The Santuk is it's like a bird of prey, which is what the Santuk Ya is named after. It's essentially like if we named a ship a Falcon. So one of their ships, the medium fighter, is named after one of their birds of prey. There's this thread on the forums about a bunch of different species that exist in Xi'an space. You mean the sentient species? Outside of the Krthok, that's pretty much all they have. We don't know if there's more. More is permanent NPCs that can train up if such a thing is possible. That's something that CIG is going to have to work on down the line. You know. Anything new on the gameplay other than combat mining that they've talked about? They haven't added new things since combat and mining. They've discussed something coming out in the future. It seems like they're talking about like info running, something that because they're talking about like computer slots for ships. So there's lots of non-bipedal species, but most of them are not sentient, and there may be a few that are sentient. The only ones that were sentient that we know of that no longer exists are the Hadesians, that had more like a spider-like body, and then a torso, and then 2 arms. So it was like, it'd be like if you had like a ball with like spider-like legs, and then a torso sticking out of somewhere on it, like either in the middle or towards the front, and 2 grasping arms with hands, and then a head. The problem is they're extinct, as far as we know. They wiped themselves out before we even discovered their system. If I could snap my fingers and spawn one ship from the game in real life, I would. But I have to give it to Elon Musk. What ship would you choose? The Gray Cat. Here you go, Elon. Golf cart. Bye. Advantages or disadvantages is a golf cart. Advantages, it never runs out of gas. I agree with you, Del. I didn't even see you responded like that. When will they add wildfire to moons and planets? Like a wildlife? They'll talk a little bit about it this week there, Sullivan. That's one of the things they're talking about. They're talking about the space cow they've talked about. They've talked about the space whale, both of which are in lore, and they're working on concept sketches and getting some of the initial stuff down. So probably next year would be the earliest I'd suggest for that. I remember reading somewhere a hint at a sentient species which rebelled against the Xi'an and took sovereignty in part of their territory. Something the Xi'an avoid talking about. Yeah, the Krthok is what you're thinking about. The Krthok are, we don't know a lot about them. The Krthok are a species that have been fighting the Xi'an for a long time, called the Spirit, something called the Spirit Wars. It's believed that the Krthok actually have captured the Xi'an homeworld, because we know that the Xi'an have a homeworld. They no longer live on that homeworld. We don't know what happened to it. As far as we know, that it's still intact, it still exists, but the Xi'an don't live there anymore. So, and we know that they're afraid of the Krthok. Now, we don't know who the Krthok are. We don't know if they're Xi'an that just rebelled against the Xi'an, like, a separate, the same species, different, like, kind of political entity, or if they're a completely separate species. One of the leading beliefs is that they were a predator species on their homeworld, and that both of these species, because the Xi'an are actually carrions, they're actually scavengers, that both of them evolved at the same time. They evolved into sentience. They fought wars with one another, and eventually the Xi'an beat them. And then somehow the Krthok were able to kick the Xi'an off their homeworld and expand their own power. There's other theories that the Xi'an actually created the Krthok as like an AI sentient race that then kicked the Xi'an off. That's another theory that players have been going with. We don't know a lot about the Krthok, so there's a lot of rumors that float around them as a result. Yeah, so if you've seen pictures of the space cows, they're eggs. Space cows are eggs. They lay eggs for their young, and so on the teat of the space cow is not actually a teat; it's actually an egg. You just and it gives birth. So, question: CIG has announced what systems Squadron 42 is based in. Mostly the Odin systems that we know of right now. The Odin system, because that system I assume would have been more near done. One of the theories of what's going to be coming in with Star Citizen Beta is what's called the Line of Five, which is Stanton, Pyro, Nyx, and Odin. Because Stanton has a jump point to Pyro. Pyro has a jump point to Nyx. Nyx's only landing zone is Delamar. And Delamar is already in game. Levski. That's where Levski is. So all you gotta do is build the system out, not the landing zone. And then Nyx, where Delamar is, has a jump point to Odin. So you've got Odin, which is being for Squadron 42. Nyx, which has already been worked on. Pyro, which is currently being worked on. And Stanton, which is almost done. So that's 4 of the 5. And I think the reason why people say Line of 5 is because it sounds nice. But you could easily have Magnus, which is there's a jump point between Stanton and Magnus, or Terra, one of those 6. And at one point, CIG was working hard on Terra Tower, which is the landing zone for Terra. It was supposed to be the second, what's called the social module back in the day. So it could be that the Line of 5 is Terra, Stanton, Pyro, Nyx, Odin. 5 systems, which are, all could even be in Squadron 42. So, shout out. You want to see big spiders, guys? The crotch spiders? The Krthok is definitely one of those weird things. It's going to be... CIG is going to have it in their back pocket. There is one case where a human explorer was paid to try to get in contact with the Krthok. The Xi'an tracked them and then captured him as a spy. Having a major interstellar incident between the Xi'an Empire and the Human Empire. And the Xi'an were prepared to start going to war. They're like, you have a spy. And humanity was like, it's not a spy, he's just an explorer. And they're like, he was paid for you guys to spy. We're going to kill him. And then a bunch of the conservative hawks in the Senate were like, rabble, kill the Xi'an, kill the Xi'an. And so, it took the Imperator to go like, yo, let's calm down. He's just an explorer. We'll pay something. There was a negotiation for it to give him back, but it made humanity look weak in the eyes of the Hawks. So the conservative factions of the UEE politics is very xenophobic. Do any alien species hang out in Stanton? We know that likely the Devarin do, because they're everywhere. Definitely the Xi'an and definitely the Banu. The Xi'an have described ArcCorp, for instance, as I said earlier, as a factory world. They said it's like one of their factory worlds. So we know that the Xi'an have been there. Likely the Banu were there because, let's face it, the Banu love to buy and sell stuff. And Stanton is probably a second Mecca for them in terms of it's a holy place. Oh, glory be to the god of capitalism. The Banu, man. Is there a ship or piece of technology you've heard of in lore that you'd like to see most in game? Yeah, terraforming. I'd like to see what terraforming beams do, or more than just beams, the processes upon which it works. There's also the tractor beams, something like that's going to be more of a gameplay thing as well, though. Base swap meat, yeah. That moment when explorers literally fulfill spy roles. Yeah. Will we ever get jetpacks? There's been discussions about it in the community, and I think CIG's been listening to it. Likely, it'd be my guess. Probably nothing crazy, not something super, No Man's Sky, but no yeet packs, but probably something that'll let you, just slow your descent. You laugh, but Elon would likely reverse engineer the Grey Cat and integrate its future tech into Tesla and other tech, pushing human tech forward hundreds of years. Jordan, I know. Like that's the reason why I'd give him the Grey Cat PTV, because part of it is like lol. Here's the never-ending golf cart. Enjoy it, kid. And he'd be like, it doesn't run enough power. How do I make this into bigger forms? Hey, Nick, thank you so much for that 3 months. Let's see what we got here so far. If we have any raids or anything else like that, I apologize. Kilted Frog, thanks for that subscription last time. Let's go. And again, thank you so much to the Doctor for that $100 backing. You absolute mad lad. And of course, Sci-Fi, thank you so much for upping your own from $25 to $50. And Spiria, thanks for that $10. These are all folks who've helped out on Patreon. Or allow you to get back into your ship that's parked funky jetpacks. Yeah. Like I said, not eat packs, but something that's more EVA packs that can be overcharged to do what you need them to do in low gravity environments or in high gravity environments to prevent you from just splatting on the surface. Elon would turn the Grey Cat into a heart to power his Iron Man suit. Yeah. Still a third question. Wouldn't Star Citizen have to be done for beta to play around beta game for beta game play around the same time as Squadron 42, since it'll be Squadron 42 at the end game gameplay? Sort of. So Star Citizen would have to be in beta when Squadron 42 is releasing. Squadron 42 is not releasing this year. The earliest that'll release is next year, and likely we won't get salvage until maybe next year. There's a lot of back-end stuff that's being worked on with Star Citizen right now, and a lot of the other resources are being put towards Squadron 42, obviously. We don't have 100% confirmation on that. We'll find out, but we'll see. My estimation is end of next year or end of 2022. It'd be the latest dates we'd see Squadron 42 is 2022. Because they seem fairly close to their target for a beta. And all of this combat tweaking, I have no doubt, is directly influencing combat balance in Squadron 42. Sitcom was supposed to be a big year for CIG. Yeah, this year's sitcom was supposed to be. To salvaging Port Olisar. I don't know why people got this in their head. I blame you, Board, if you're still watching, for spreading the rumor that Port Olisar is going to be destroyed. We don't know if Port Olisar is going to be destroyed. It could be. It could not be. It's an old asset, so they'd have to come up with damage states for all the station, which would probably be a waste of time. It'll likely be destroyed in the sense that it will one day be there and one day not be. Is there any talk of being able to get tattoos or something else to distinguish players further? Yeah, that's been talked about before, Roy. Even like different bionic arms or legs and stuff. Oh, 2022 is so far away, but yeah. Now, Solo, essentially, once Squadron 42 has reached the state where they have built the game, the beta-ish state, you'll start to see some movement away from Squadron 42 back to Star Citizen, just because, and that's only if the back-end stuff is working, just because they won't need to build new gameplay aspects or new levels for Star Citizen. They just need to take the existing levels and modify them. There'll be the building process is done. Adding content is the key, and balancing it to make sure it works. How good am I at racing in the game? I'm terrible. I'm absolutely garbage. I need a beard. There was supposed to be some sort of tech they were working on for hair physics and like hair simulations, which they haven't done yet. But yeah, that's another example of something that still needs to get done, which is the Vulcan conversion. That needs to get completely done for the game to work better. Probably also needed for Squadron 42. Plus the back end, iCache, server-side OCS. Those are all things that are not server-side OCS. I keep saying that. That's so stuck in the past. It's already done. Server meshing is what I mean. Server meshing, iCache, I said earlier. I want to see more utility ships being released now. We've got enough combat ships for now. Well, combat ships are easier to make. A lot of the stuff, like a utility ship, like a salvage ship, would be easy to make once we have salvage in. But look at mining. They had they've had mining in for enough that they just slapped together the mole. they have 2 mining ships in game. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a third. Something that's bigger than a mole, smaller than an Orion. That's part mining ship, part refining ship from, say, Grey Cat or from Argo, one of the two. Yeah, there's been the rumors of the mining buggy coming. So, like, once they have a feature in and they like the way it's working, they quickly out the ships for that role. We have quantum interdiction and quantum entanglement now. So both of those components exist. CIG you'll start seeing, we've already have 2 ships that have it. You'll start seeing other ships start to grow and get those capabilities. When info running first comes in, we're going to have the Star Runner and the Herald. Guarantee you will have something else that pops in there too. Will there be a gas mining ship? There is. It's called the Starfire. Starfare. Starfare is a gas mining ship. That's one of its roles. It's a refueling ship, but it's also a gas mining ship. Question from Paseo, who asks, is there anything in the lore regarding any large-scale events in Earth's history that have led to sizable changes in geographic features? Nothing that we know of. There was a major conflict sometime before the UNE was formed. It may have happened around the UNE. There's a lot of stuff we haven't learned about early human spaceflight history. We're pretty certain about most things from the invention of quantum travel up to the formation of the UNE. We know that countries and mega corporations existed. Likely countries existed outside of Earth. Mars probably had several countries on it. Moons of Jupiter probably had several countries on them. Earth was not united as one country or as one government by the time humanity found its first jump point. There was still the U.S. Well, I think it was North American Union or something like that. But you still had like the EU, China, so on and so forth, pushing out into deep space, into jump points. Japan, for instance, had one as well. It was pushing out there as well. And so it gets complicated when you have a planet that was discovered by someone from France and sold to a company out of Mexico to terraform. Whose control is it? Like, is it the companies? Is it Mexico? Is it France? Is there somewhere in between? Can they turn around and sell that to Brazil? Like how does that work? And that's what caused the UNE to be formed. As they started finding jump point after jump point after jump point once they knew what they were looking for, and things began to get super complicated as to who can control what. What if someone from Ganymede were to build a city on a moon that was first discovered by a Martian? Who controls it? Does that Ganymede person have a right to build it there? No one told him not to. Who's going to arbitrate the rights between those two? How do you figure that out? And there were mentions of a war orcs conflicts in Gift for Baba, which is a story that takes place, I want to say, just after the UNE was founded. It's 3 kids from Mars going to Ganymede to give their grandma Baba a gift. So there is some mention of conflict. So that's just a children's story. So we don't know. As a result, we don't have a huge amount of information on what Earth looks like today. We know that the capital on Earth is New York, and that's about it. We know that Russia has a xenobiology, is like the center of xenobiology on for the UEE. So, will there be? This question: does the Raven have info running capabilities? I don't think it does. It might though. Possibly even the Sentinel. Who knows? I wonder if human history was partially lost along the way. It could have been. Anything new about the Pioneer yet? No. Probably going to be that's probably one of those ships that's not going to be introduced until well after the game is launched. The Endeavor, the Pioneer, those ships are likely not going to come in, too quickly. Because the Pioneer's job is to do end game level gear, end game level stuff, which won't exist at the really beginning of the game. And ANCAP will be strong in the dark. There's a lot of ANCAP kind of ideas in Stanton. I mean, Stanton itself has no government. There's no governments in Stanton. Stanton is entirely run by the corporations that own the planets. Now, they still have to abide by UEE laws, but that's mostly that they have to abide by UEE civil rights laws. And the UEE is very loose in terms of most of its enforcement. It's entirely reliant on the corporations to do it. So the corporations are the ones who dictate everything from environmental policies to petty crimes, everything. So for instance, ETAM is not illegal on Hurston, but it is on ArcCorp, to give you an example. Yeah. If you guys like ANCAPs, Stanton is pretty fucking close to that. I can swear because it's after an hour. I'm gonna look up this Alien Week stuff. Oof. Where does it say Alien Week? We'll also welcome a new episode of Star Citizen Live, which will broadcast our Citizen Twitch channel this week. Our narrative team, narrative director Dave Haddock, lead writer William Weisbaum. Adam is still working for them. I didn't know if Adam was still working for them. I love that. And archivist Sherry Hyberd. Nice. We'll discuss alien races and Star Citizen. Okay, that's what they're talking about. That. I don't know when that's coming in. If it's coming in this next coming week or something. But it would make sense for them to do like a week of sales for alien ships, just because they wouldn't sell them in the Invictus week. Glory to the Hurston family. Yeah. Citizen Bass, thank you so much for that subscription, man. Shots and cheers in chat, guys. Let's get some beers up in here for that wonderful subscription. The picture in game of New York's specific important buildings, you think? The ones that are covered in kind of like a weird looking force field, those are like the Empire State Building. Those are protective. Yeah, they're this historical buildings. You actually will see the Senate building. It's this huge tower that says UEE on it. It's a Senate building in New York. Adam had got a haircut? Oh, okay. I wouldn't be, nah. It's hard to tell with Star Citizen because there's plenty of places like Nyx that exist in the Star Citizen universe, which is more of a hippie commune than it is ANCAP, but Adam had a question. Will racing be added in by what patch? We don't know, Steve. It could be next patch. Possibly. They got rid of scramble racing because nobody did it and it was broken, but we'll see. Question. With some of the larger capital ships and gameplay systems coming down the pipe, Kraken Endeavor refueling player-to-player trading money, do you foresee players making their own trade ports, swap meets out in space? Yes. Yes, I do. It really depends on where they are, though. A lot of players will stick close to zones that are already protected. So my guess would be ports, landing zones that have armistice zones around them. On moons would probably be the location you'd see. Or like the rooftops of ArcCorp. Any place where there's a lot of space and protection for without having to pay for like security. Question: I will not be able to visit Pyro if I don't have a jump drive in my ship, and if I can't like hitchhike there. You will only be able to go there if you have a jump drive. Now, most starter ships have a capability of having a jump drive, but it's an add-on. Not all of them come with its standard. For instance, the Aurora MR does not come with a jump drive standard, but the Aurora LN does. The Hornet does not come with its standard, but the Hornet, Super Hornet does. I don't believe the Sabre has a jump drive standard, but you can install it. The M50 doesn't have a jump drive standard, but you can install one. So it's an upgrade that you can purchase for your quantum drive to allow you to jump. Now, we don't know if you need a jump drive with jump gates, because it seems like the jump gates themselves, the physical jump gates, might actually stabilize it for you, so you don't need to have a jump drive. That may be just making it easier on the actual quantum drive, basically like less fuel or something like that, but we don't know. You can hitchhike if you have a ship that can go onto another ship, like a Kraken or something like that. If you can land a ship on top of the Kraken take you through the jump gate. Otherwise, you'll have to purchase a jump drive for yourself. Just did some low-level mining for the first time. Is Port All-Stars still the only place you can sell ore? No, you can sell them at any of the landing zones. There's maybe one or two you can't. Like, yeah, I don't think you can sell. No, you might be able to sell it at Microtech. Yeah, you can still sell them at like most of the places. Thank you, Citizen. Thanks for that subscription, everything, man. Ashley. You guys all for the retweets and the favorites. Spread the love you guys get a chance to. Question about future game. Do you think if the pilot part of the cat detached and flew away to a different player with that pilot section could hook up and fly away the main body of the cat? Yes, Noble. That's the idea. In fact, once they get that sectionality working, I can guarantee you that CIG will sell that pilot part as a separate ship, because it has its own quantum drive and jump drive. It's essentially its own standalone ship that also hooks onto the Caterpillar to make it work. You can think of it as kind of like a tug that's also a command boat. Follow up to the hitchhiking. Won't there eventually be a way to get a ride from an NPC via Starliner or equivalent? Yep, that's the plan. And they're working on that. If you go to ArcCorp, if you go to Microtech, and I think even Lorville, you'll actually see passenger terminals. So you can go to there. You can also hitchhike with players. You'll be able to do that eventually as well. Can be a bit confusing where the ore selling terminals are. Usually a different office from the community trading hubs. They tend to be. but they changed the looks. So if you go to where the community trading hubs are, like the trades districts, you'll see it'll say refinery. That's where you want to go. Is it going to be weird playing alongside Mark Hamill? It's going to be weird playing alongside Mark Hamill in Squadron 42? I don't think so. I think it'll be awesome. What will replace Levski in Stanton, or will it be left void, do you think? What's going to replace Levski is what's called the Air and Halo stations. This currently exists in game, but it doesn't exist in terms of like on the map. But there is a large, thick asteroid belt that exists between Stanton 2, which is Crusader, and Stanton 3, which is ArcCorp. So, and that is called the Air and Halo. And because it's so dense in terms of like asteroid belt, there are stations along the Air and Halo, which are basically like giant shields. They're huge stations which block the both sides of the kind of like cleared out an area of the asteroids and kind of built like a channel, like a canal for space to allow players and NPCs to fly safely through the Air and Halo. They also serve as jump points or as choke points for like piracy, and they also serve as stations similar to the R&R stations. They've showed off some of the early work for a working concept for the Air and Halo in ISC before, and so it's something that they've been working on. I believe they found some references to it in game. Even it was in some of the files. But it's essentially just like part R&R station, part checkpoint. So that's what's going to replace Delamar. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can actually see the Air and Halo today. It's one of the secrets that experienced miners won't tell you about. There's a certain distance marker that you cancel your jump at, and when you come out, you just show up in this huge asteroid field. It's in game. It's just not like it doesn't stop your jump right now. In the future, the idea is that when they rework the asteroids, that will stop your jump. So you'll have to either jump around it or go through the Air and Halo stations. Question: do you think that all ships will be able to broken down into a sort of portable crate for transport? Not really broken down, but they definitely have crates that they were planning on building for transport for ships that were designed to be attached to the whole series, like wire mesh that you could put like an M50 in. I don't think all ships will be able to do it. I think all solo player ships, so every single fighter ship, Gladius, M50, Razor, Saber, Hornet, they will all be able to be transported through those kind of systems. I don't think a Freelancer, for instance, will be able to be broken down, or like a Cutlass. Exactly, they showed us some concepts with ships being hauled in the hull. Wolf, do you know how cargo loading / unloading will be implemented? Is it supposed to be just a timer, while NPCs also going to be unloading the cargo for you? So, I think the way that CIG wants to do it is that NPCs will physically unload the cargo for you, or you can do it yourself. And the NPCs will have likely what they'll do is maybe a combination of the NPCs loading, like unloading stuff, and a timer. So they'll say, hey, this is about the time it'll be done. You come back, and even if the NPCs are working, they'll be close to being finished, kind of thing. But giving you kinds of heads up. Or more likely, because Chris Roberts loves his immersion drink, he will have your he'll have a he'll have them call you. Essentially, the dock workers will be like, cool, come back and we'll call you when we're done. And then they'll call you and you'll come back to your ship and it'll be unloaded. And it'll be like an internal system on CIG's part. CIG seems to be moving away from like all that kind of crazy stuff like being done in real time, because that's incredibly expensive for them to do, requires a lot of programming, and doesn't really add a lot, because if players just sit there and watch it, it's kind of lame. You know, it's because it's more about simulating the experience, not necessarily going one-to-one with reality. So like that's what they talked about, basically NPCs unloading, and you can unload it separately. But my guess is that they'll probably have NPCs simulating unloading it. They won't actually pick up crates. They'll come in, they'll pick up a crate, and they'll move, and then the crates will actually decrease based off of a timer that you have, or they'll just call you. Or you can do it yourself with the location where you need to go to, and you'll almost always be faster than the NPCs, depending on where you are. That would be my guess. The air inhaler is awesome if traveling from ArcCorp to Hurston. You want to first disengage quantum around 30. Yeah. Yep, that is Devil Dog's right. That's where you go. Yeah, they showed off some of the whole concepts. Okay. So putting a ship in an 890 as you ride that bus across the galaxy. You could do that. Yeah. 890 is a carrier. Mini carrier. It's like a luxury yacht, but it also has carrier capabilities. So, do you think there will be a celebrity character implementation further in the game development near the end of to shore things up? Or do you think they're done with celebrity character interaction? They're done with celebrity character interaction. In Squadron 42, at least. There's a bunch of hidden people that have been released, that have been leaked, that we don't, I'm not going to spoil, but we know we have files from people. Speaking of thick asteroid fields, do you think the ability to engage quantum jump straight out of spaceports will be pushed out further to give pirates more of an opportunity to interdict ships? Likely. They'll probably have some sort of wash limit, so essentially you'll have to go a certain distance away from a station, just like you have to go a certain distance away from a planet to jump to quantum. And it's also likely that that process will require spin ups and cooldowns, but it'll also likely be that like you have to leave asteroid belts, but to be able to jump. You won't be able to just like kind of sort of half jump and then go through asteroids. Hey Doctor, how you doing, buddy? Again, big ups to Doctor, who is our $100 Patreon supporter. Thank you so much, man. I think there's someone who's... Aerobar, I got you. I wonder what it would be like to see a bunch of bounty hunters hunting a bunch of pirates. And are you just gonna, like, just la-di-da through the area like, what the fuck? I mean, I can see it happening. I can see it happening. I can see you can pop... It used to happen frequently for me. Where I would just get pulled out of quantum, and it's a bounty hunter in a Valkyrie or a Avenger going after a solo buck or a solo cutlass. So it's definitely behavior that they're looking to implement. How thick is the asteroid belt, anyways? Well, as any scientist will tell you, the asteroid belts in science fiction are completely made up. They don't exist. Our own asteroid belt that exists in our solar system, is a huge place where massive numbers of like asteroids exist, but they don't like bump into each other. They don't like they are hundreds of kilometers away from each other, thousands, millions of kilometers away from each other. It's just where they tend to end up in gathering because of the like gravitational pulls and such like that. Like the Orc Cloud is another example of like icy bodies that exist beyond the edge of our solar system. That are millions of these objects, but it's not like it's so thick that you have to like navigate through them. You could go in a straight line and not hit a single one. They're pretty dispersed. But in reality, or in the game's reality, this is probably one of the thicker ones. All the asteroid fields in Star Citizen are going to be fairly tightly packed. And in this case, the asteroid field is incredibly condensed. What do you prefer to see in the verse first, Banu or Xi'an? Probably the Banu, I'd prefer, just because we know a little bit more about them. They're a little bit more loose, so the stories you can tell with them is a little bit better. Whereas the Xi'an are a little bit more tight in terms of their interactions with people. Noble asks, question, what do you think of the first real profitable non-NPC mission pirate gameplay will be? First pirate gameplay profitable. Probably, I mean, it'll be a location like Jumptown or like Tram & Myers, which is frequented by people, someplace that has almost always going to be reliable to make money off of. But it really, like, we've already had that. It's just like we don't have the tools for it yet. It's really hard to tell that in Noble Phoenix. It's definitely going to be extortion or piracy, just pure piracy. One of the two. Like, pay me money and I'll go away, or give me some of your cargo and I'll go away. Yeah, Voyager 1 and 2 are navigating the Orc Clouds with no problems. They're some of the fastest things mankind's ever built. They're not exactly dodging around. They're just hurtling through space at as fast as they possibly can. I don't recall seeing anything like that. It would be nice if there was. Make loading quicker. Oh, the forklifts. Yeah, they're supposed to have forklifts. And your multi-gun, your multi-tool is supposed to have a attachment for it to turn it into essentially a lifter. Because all of the boxes, like the big crates in Star Citizen, are supposed to have tiny little maneuvering jets on them. So you take your multi-tool, you stick it into like a control location, and you press a button, and then you can lift it because the compressed air, like it has like compressed air in the itself. You can lift it with your multi-tool and then move it to where you need to go. It could also just be like anti-gravity of some sort, but essentially it's like a tool that has fuel that you use to move heavy objects around with the tool. But it's 10K kilometers across, 10,000 kilometers across. We don't know the full depth of it. We just know that it's thicker than it's one of the thicker ones in terms of gameplay information. I can look it up, the direct details, but CIG is very careful about that. CIG is very careful about how they approach those things because they want to be able to change them if they need to. Yeah, there's no details that I can find. We know the distances that you can find it. We know that it orbits the closest at approximately 5,937,500 kilometers from Port Olisar and the Pyro jump point. We have some generic estimations. Here is the orbit of it. So if you want to do the calculations of how big it is, I'll put this in chat for you guys to kind of get that idea. If you want to do the math, there, T Delta, TG. Pick up boxes bare hands. Well, you're a Marine, so it's understandable, Lilith. It's only 1 ton. I can lift this. Noble Phoenix question: do you think the Vulcan will be possible to operate with 1 person? Yeah, for sure. I mean, you basically can have someone who is a pilot and then gets out of the pilot seat and then operates the drones. It'll be more efficient with multiple people, but yeah, you can do it with 1 person. Given the scale of the universe, won't it be kind of unlikely that we bump into other people unless we have to take bounty missions and contracts? Is it safe to try to be? It's safe to say mostly PvP. I would say it's safe to say it's going to be mostly PvP. But the way that CIG is planning on doing things is to make a choke points, so flashpoints in Jumptown. For instance, if you guys remember Jumptown, the Jumptown conflicts, the Jumptown Wars, which we did a documentary on, which is on the Astropub's YouTube right now, part 1 and part 2, Cassius Belli and Totalis Bellum. Can't remember the names of them. Basically, Causes of War and Total War, which kind of chronicles the actual events of Jumptown. Something like that will probably be possible. And that will draw people into play. I would also imagine they'll do something similar to raids, places where you will draw players in for conflict that is regular, that is, or likely to happen quickly. Some place where you can sign up for, like, I don't know, like an event of some kind, to get players to come together to play together. But generally speaking, I would say it's mostly PvP, or mostly PvE in a PvP universe. You also got to remember that the player size count is going to be much higher. Right now we only have 50 players per server, but eventually we're all going to be in the same server. Like everyone who plays will be in the same server. What is the age limit of the pub, and is there a cover charge? No BYOB, there won't be a cover charge. Old enough to drink. That's all I'm going to say. I was told there'd be no math. What are your thoughts on the gimbal guns for Star Citizen? How they face up against fixed guns? Well, they're going to change their chief. That's one of the big things they're changing. They're changing fixed from being fixed to semi-gimbal. So essentially, fixed guns will now have a small arc upon which they fire when they get close, whereas the gimbals are going to be, even today, they're a little bit harder to kind of work with. The auto gimbals, they're working on it for this next patch. We'll see how well it works. Cargo being nerfed so hard, will it be possible to fill a whole series with 1 commodity? Likely, but that 1 commodity is probably going to be something cheap. You're looking at something like potatoes, you know. And a whole series is not something you just pull out because you want to. Maybe a whole A or a whole B could do that, but a whole C is going to be something with serious cargo. The idea behind the whole series and behind Star Citizen in general is that if you have something that's going to fill an entire whole C, it's probably not yours. It's probably somebody else's, like an NPC's that's giving you, saying, haul these million space potatoes from point A to point B. So instead of you, right now, you are the main person who's buying your gear and then trying to sell it at a higher cost. In the future, you will be getting missions where you will haul other people's stuff to where it needs to go. Space trucking, essentially. Instead of space trading, you're space trucking. And most of the trading missions will be done that way. So you're not actually risking your own money. Think box missions, but instead of 1 box, 1 billion boxes. And instead of you having to load it, other people will load it for you. That kind of thing. Potatoes are not cheap in space. Martian potatoes are, though. Delicacy. Did CIG put out an info on Jumptown, or is it kind of player discovered? There is some information out there about what it is. There are other like trap houses, but I don't know if they're so. A lot of people don't know. Okay, there is one that that used to exist on Delamar or exist in the Hurston system that I don't remember the name of. But there are two in ArcCorp. One is called the Orphanage. The other one is called Paradise Cove. That are similar to Jumptown, and there are a couple of them in. There was at least one in the Hurston. There might be one in Microtech. I don't know though. Why do you think the Ranger isn't out yet? And do you think it'll fit in an Avenger? They said specifically it will fit in an Avenger Titan. And why it's not out yet is because it's not of importance. CIG is essentially going through and trying to get stuff done that they can get done quickly and or has some sort of importance to it. I'm assuming that ground transportation isn't a huge goal right now because of lots of different things. Like they've talked about changing the train scattering so you don't have a billion rocks everywhere to make it easier to traverse. It's also probably a little bit wonky because it's essentially like this is the first two-wheel vehicle they have. I'd expect the G17 to come out before the Ranger does, essentially. I hope CIG provides a very nice countertop for you. They will, I hope. I already haul other people's stuff, mostly delivery missions are the thing after all. They are, yeah. So essentially, think delivery missions, but scaled up and twice the money, 100,000 UEC to haul a full freelancer from ArcCorp to Terra. Take some time, take some effort. If you're filling up your own Hull series, your own Hull C, for instance, you are probably spending millions, if not billions, of credits, and you're looking at profits in the millions, if not billions, from those runs. And so it's going to be something that's going to require money and investment, time, planning, probably lots of protection. There's going to be lots of levels when you're doing those kinds of missions, and they're not going to be easy and they're not going to be quick. And that's what CIG wants to do. They want to make sure that every single profession is slow and methodical in terms of how they do things. There'll be missions you can do that are just pick up and run, but most of the stuff that's going to make you the most money will require time and planning and cooperation with other players. Because CIG is working off the assumption, which is there was an article that was written by somebody who worked on the original Ultima Online, where they have a theory on player psychology, which is for an MMO, players do not remember the action or the gameplay of an MMO as much as they remember the quiet moments between the actions. Hanging out with members of the guild, traveling from point A to point B, special events, emergent gameplay events. Those emergent gameplay events are more memorable than anything you can plan for. So giving players a break and time to just slow down and just take in the universe will make the game feel better and will have players have a better time because they will make more memories, which will then capture them into the universe more. That is the theory that Star Citizen is at the crux of Star Citizen's gameplay development. So when you hear people say, but it's boring, that's the point. It's not supposed to be PUBG or Call of Duty. It's supposed to be more akin to raids in WoW. Prepare, plan, and then execute, and then debrief. So. My Hull D can hold 20k SCU. If I fill it with scrap, 2 million units at a profit margin of 20%, that's 400,000 UEC per run. That's actually pretty low. Will escape pods be pilotable, or will you just be able to floating there? Depends on the escape pod. Some of them are pilotable, some of them are not. Question, what are the lifespans of an alien races in the verse? Was human lifespan increased from our average age of 80? Yeah, average age of humanity is between 150 and 180. Xion live like 1,000 years. The current emperor is 500 years old. 500, 600 years old. Was born on the same day that or no, he ascended to the head of the Xi'an Empire the same day that Ivor Mezer did. So on the very same day as the UEE was formed, the current Xi'an Emperor was installed, who is still alive today. So he was alive through the entirety of the Mezer era. That gives you an idea of how long-lived the Xi'an are. I think we don't have 100% confirmation of the Banu or the Tavaran, but we know that the Tavaran live about approximately the same age as humans, though they live very violent lives, so they may not have very long lives. The Banu may have similar, or if not longer lives. They may have super short lives. I don't know. That's the idea. Hi from the Be Goods. Hey, looking forward to the next... what are you looking for next in Star Citizen? Bars. I'm looking forward to bars. Alcohol that I can sling and then use the trading app to get money. I can make money bartending. Thank you, God. They live shorter lives? That makes sense. I haven't done a lot of research in terms of the lifespan of the Banu. The most that I know of are humanity and the Xi'an. I assume the Tavaran are equivalent to humanity. Fire straight at the turrets, strafing to avoid their fire. Yeah, that should probably work. Question: since the Xi'an humans have to de-escalate a de-escalation zone, do you think that future war will break out? For me, likely. I think you'll likely see a situation where some rogue elements of the UEE or rogue elements of the Xi'an Empire will break away and attack one another. It'll probably be an in-game lore event where players are participating in it, but we'll see. The idea that I like, the idea that I really like about Star Citizen, the way they're planning it, is you are part of the universe and you have an effect on it, but the universe exists without you. You could walk away and come back 6 months later and the entire universe may look very different. Cities may have swapped in terms of possessions. Entire planets may have fallen. Those concepts are what makes me want to play Star Citizen. Makes me want to cover the lore because it's interesting. It will happen no matter if you're there or not, but players will have the ability to influence it. Where's Sandy Garter? A long time no see. No idea, honestly. I haven't heard. When's the last time we saw Chris Roberts? CitizenCon? Or he was at. I think he was at the last Pillow Talk, but same thing. Banu are turtles. No, Xi'an are turtles. Banu are Groot. Are they still going to have those dune worms like the old trailer they did? That's the plan. Yeah, it's one of the species that lives in Lear 2, I believe. How do the alien relations get along with each other? Example, Banu-Xi'an relations. I'm going to do a couple of videos on that, but the basic gist that I can get is that the Banu and the Xi'an have fairly close relationships with one another, similar to the Banu and the humanity. They have very good trade relations. They have iffy relations with the Vanduul. There's a lot of conflict between the Banu and the Vanduul. The Tavaran are very good trade partners with the Banu. The Tavaran are also pretty good trade partners with the Xi'an, and they also seem to hate the Vanduul. They've fought wars against the Vanduul. At least we know that some human / Tavaran pirate locations like Olympus in the Null system have organized to fight Vanduul invasions, fight off Vanduul invasions. So they do fight back against the Vanduul. And it's likely that the Vanduul hate everyone except for certain Banu, certain Vanduul and the Banu. They have different relationships. The Xi'an are very calculating, so them helping the Tavaran out would be a very smart move for them, which why I think they'd probably have pretty good relations, because they could use them as pawns for what they want to do, if they want to cause them, they'll release them to cause disruption in human space. But the Banu, for instance, we know the Banu have contact with Devarin because they use their tech. Same with the Xi'an. The Banu have contact with the Xi'an because they use their tech. So the Banu are friends with everybody. The Xi'an are coldly distant, but they keep people at a distance, but are friendly to almost every species except for the Vanduul. And the Devarin are essentially refugees outside of the UEE. So they have, various status. Amongst the Banu, they're probably seen as good bodyguards, good additions to Suli as warriors, and or smugglers. But with the Xi'an, they likely keep them on as potential agents to infiltrate UEE space if they need to. You got to remember as well that the aliens don't have a monoculture. There are Xi'an who want to embrace human ideals because they like the idea that humans live for today because they live for such a short amount of times. Especially young Xi'an look up to humanity as something they want to idealize. But individuals may have different opinions. How's it going, Black Intellect? That's deep and amazing. Oh, okay. Adding the different food debuffs would be nice too. I'm trying to crank out some coffee. Yeah, coffee would be nice. Hey, Moonshadow. The Devarins were absorbed with the UEE. Mostly. You got to remember that the Devarins, as a people, were, especially after the Second Devarin War, were refugees. It took the fall of the Mezers for them to be invited back to Jalan, and that was only like 100 years ago. So many of them returned, but not all of them did. And they've been living in refugee camps or in small settlements outside of, controlled space for hundreds of years. And in many cases, the Devarin have integrated into the UEE, but not always. When do you think CIG will start implementing the races in game? Well after the game is finished. You mean this isn't Star Trek? It's not Star Trek, no. You don't have Klingons are the only, our warrior race, and they all believe the same thing. Humanity is very, in the universe of Star Citizen, the UEE is very accepting. The Devarin are, they're accepting, but they don't really have a choice in the matter. The Xi'an are very distant. You can think of the Xi'an similarly to the Japanese when they were, historically when the Japanese were isolating themselves from contact. There were a couple of islands that they allowed, and similar to the Chinese too, I think did as well. They had trade zones where the foreigners could go to those trade zones and trade, but they couldn't go outside of those trade zones. That's kind of how the Xi'an work. There are trade zones. There are places where humans and Devarin and Banu can go to interact with the Xi'an, but there are places in Xi'an Empire where humans and other species cannot go. Unless they have specific permission. Whereas the Banu are just like, hey man, we all live in a society. We don't know what that society is. All we care about is shiny things and being unique. The Banu are awesome. I love the Banu because they're the perfect example of a nihilistic, hopeful species. Like, they have no use for order whatsoever, but they're not anarchists. Yeah, I guess they are kind of anarchists rather than nihilists. They are kind of more like anarchists. They don't care. They have small communes, the Suli, and they have general rules they all abide by. That's just to make things less complicated because you've got huge empire, a huge space that you have to kind of keep in contact. But other than that, you do you, man. They don't have a history keeping tradition. Exactly, Solomus. So that means that me, Paul Shelley, can go to Banu space and create the history Suli. Come join the history Suli, Banu. We'll teach you about the past for a price. And teach you why not learning your mistakes from the past is going to come bite you in the ass. Not really individualists, because they still believe in small groups. They still have a belief in kind of like a small commune communities. The Sulis are their own enclosed communities. They work almost like their own states, and they work entirely with negotiation between the two different groups. So you might have something like a government Suli, which controls a planet. But that's mostly like a bureaucratic Suli. They essentially function as a bureaucracy to keep things running. And that bureaucracy might take in fees from other Suli, who then pay to Sulis who are, fixing water systems or paving roads and so on and so forth. But they work through negotiation. Everything is negotiated between these Sulis. So you might have 4 Sulis that exist on a planet, but those Sulis will work independently. They're their own nations unto themselves, but work cohabitively. They can cohabitate with other Sulis to make sure things run smoothly. It's a beautiful dance of chaos and order. You're just expected to know shit. Like you're not special. You just are expected to understand things. Hi, Cage. Thank you so much for that subscription. You rock, my man. Shots and cheers and chat, guys. Let's do some beers and chat for you guys. A Suli leader is like a guild leader. Yeah, it functions like a human, like a union or a guild mixed with a clan. It's part family, part trade labor union, part trade guild, part government. That's an Esosuli, yeah. Oh, the Suli, the Esosuli, yeah. Call me Esosuli Shelley. That works there. No, that works. Esosuli Shelley. That's my new title. Paul Berserker 01, Batman Esosuli Shelley. It's Suli's all the way down. Yeah. In fact, the leaders of the Banu Protectorate, I think is what they call it, is the Divine Protectorate. I can't remember. The leaders of the Banu are actually, the main leaders are actually monks, religious monks, which live isolated from society. They're essentially a Suli, an isolated Suli that just decides the bigger laws. And the reason why they want that to happen, the reason why they want to isolate them is because they don't want them to be influenced by any of the individual Sulis to cause more chaos. They figure that if they have a neutral arbiter of a third party dealing with a lot of these laws, then they don't have to worry about a lot of the details. So, a question from Solothurn: are they still going to have those dune worms like an old trailer that did? I think I already said that. Yeah, Lear 2 is where they live, and they're a big part of their ecosphere. So I would probably think yes. Just not until Lear gets into game. The willingness to forget history in place of addition and growth of culture is interesting. Yeah, the idea that they essentially, if it's old and busted, why do we want to remember it? There's no point in remembering it. There's common knowledge, but it doesn't matter who the last Esosuli was as long as you learned the lessons from the last Esosuli. The problem is that 15 Esosulis later, you might be making mistakes that the 15th Esosuli ago made, but you don't know that because you didn't know that Esosuli. And that Esosuli didn't necessarily pass on that information because it's not written down. Though I could still see there'd be guides and like manuals for Esosuli or for other people to like, hey, don't do this, do this. But I'm imagining over time those guides and manuals would be more technical and then be updated, and so some of the stuff might just disappear because there's no reason to remember it. We know, for instance, there's ruins on one Tavaran world. We have no idea who they are. Tavaran, Banu world, that we don't know. We don't know where they come from. We don't know if it's an old Banu settlement. We don't know if that's the Banu homeworld. But they're ruins of a civilization that existed, and the Banu are just like, whatever, dude. We don't know. No one keeps records. They might have been here when we got here. I don't know. So humans have been going to Banu space to excavate this place to kind of learn about it. Humans have done more chronicling of Banu history than the Banu have. Do they have something like the rules of acquisition? As far as I know, no, they don't. Because unlike like the Ferengi, they're not a race of merchants. It's just that their structure of their society tends to bend towards merchants. But it doesn't mean they're the only things. It's kind of like Tavaran are warriors, but they're not just warriors. Xi'an are diplomats, but they're not just diplomats. They have some parts of their society augments those abilities, but it's not the only thing they're good at. Will we get a Vanduul medium-sized ship with a turret? Probably, David. I mean, there was the Vulper bomber, which exists, which is the same size, or if I remember correctly, it's supposed to be about the same kind of capacity as the Retaliator. So I'm assuming they exist. Banu plus space sonars, like they're kind of like space sonars. They're more entrepreneurs, inventors, and scientists. Their culture reveres uniqueness, value through its uniqueness. So a one-of-a-kind painting, like a painting that exists, there's only two of, will have an incredible value for a Banu. Even if that painting is garbage, if it's valuable, they'll hold on to it. And then there could be things that just look pretty, that aren't necessarily super rare, but they just look pretty, that are also valuable to them because it looks pretty. Trinkets, garbage, as long as it's unique or interesting or dynamic is what the Banu look for. They look for uniqueness in things, and they value skill. Something that has absolutely no purpose but takes a lot of skill to make would be very valued in Banu society, because again, it's about the skill of building that thing or making that thing or creating that thing more than it is the value of that thing. It's all about the skill, and that's what the Banu strive for, is perfection. Being the best soldier, being the best shipmaker, being the best janitor. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you're the best at it. Do really, really good at it. Be the best criminal you can be. Like, the Banu don't really care about criminality as long as you're good at it. So yeah, so Banu would make fantastic scientists because they're I can imagine them being very dedicated to trying to figure out something because they want to. It's very no. They don't have a history solely. They don't exist. They don't keep their history records because there's no value in it. Exactly. That's my point, Del. So I can create a history solely. Rob me with passion. It's the rob someone blind before they know that before you knew you've been robbed. So Banu would be like, I'm not even mad. That was really good. You stole my whole ship, but I didn't even know you stole my ship. Not even mad at you right now. That's skill. I believe it's more that within a Suli, there are traders that go between the Sulis and other races to sell the Suli. There are, Del, but there are also trading Sulis. There's Sulis whose sole job is to trade. Do you think it's possible that there was a history Suli that was destroyed? Probably not. There was probably a society that was at one point that existed that was before the Sulis existed. Something that was created out of the Sulis. The Sulis were created from, that was long lost. And that may be something we find out in Star Citizen. Robbie, if you're one-of-a-kind statue. Exactly. Now you're thinking with Banu. Bang, bang, Banu, Banu. Do you think that time towards the real outreaches of the verse, there could be species that we don't know about and are not implemented? Bootneck, you're talking about the Kuthok, and yes, I believe they will. They will exist. It's just when CIG gets the time to make those kind of things in a meaningful way. Absolutely, Shelly. You just need to buy me as an apprentice. That's right. Whew. We're coming up towards the end, guys. Any other questions you guys have? Oh, isn't that where the Theaters of War is happening? What is the TG Delta? The Theaters of War is happening on a place called the Nexus System, which is that's where the first map is, which is a system that exists between Nemo, I want to say, and Spider, or Cathcart and Nemo. Though Nexus has a bunch of different jump points to other places. But Nexus is essentially like a hub of criminal activity. It's called the Crossroads of Crime. Because pretty much if there's a crime committed, either the person or the objects that were stolen or the ships that were used to steal those things, some aspect of the crime was done by something that went through Nexus. Because Nexus is one jump away from Spider, from Cathcart, which is where Spider is, the mega station that is a junk station, like a ship, like a junkyard that's been turned into a landing zone, as like essentially kind of like a pirate capital. That's where most of the large pirate organizations live when they're not doing work. So, and the Nexus system was invaded by the UEE only like 20 years ago. And what you're playing in Theaters of War is that battle that happened 20 years ago, while the advocacy was invading with the help of the military to control the Nexus system, which is technically a UEE system. So, what's that puzzle box that Banu loves so much? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's actually a Hadesian puzzle box that they have. It's waiting payment now. No problem, Roy. Thanks for coming in. Question, is there any tech that Pyro is waiting for? Do you think that they're simply working on it? That's a good show. They've talked about it. Server meshing probably, and iCache. Just because they want to expand the map, but, you know, they also want to have, right now, the center of the server for any game is the 0-0 coordinates is Stanton. So what they need to do is be able to have multiple servers meshed together and then be able to have a transition between server to server so that they can have the transition from Stanton to Pyro, even if it's static. That's the main tech that they're waiting for. They've even talked about it. They said that they could implement Pyro without server meshing, but it would still require some sort of loading from one server to another, which would require different tech. So it's something they've talked about. Which is first, the California high-speed rail finished or Star Citizen? Black, I voted for the California high-speed rail when I lived there. And that was 2006, 2007. And it's still not done. I honestly think Chris Roberts probably has a higher chance of finishing before the rail system's done. I don't think that they're waiting on any tech for Pyro. It's just one station and the planets and moons. Yeah, I mean, the main tech is the background tech that allows them to transverse between them. They said it's not a huge issue. There's ways they could get around it, but they want to get server meshing in to allow for a larger number of players, because that's another thing. If you have Stanton and Pyro in, because Pyro will be done one swoop. Like, there won't be piecemeal planets and stations coming into Pyro. Pyro is just one station. So that station is done, the moons and the planets are done, then they're done. So when that happens, that happens. Like, we're talking the end of the year next year, or next year kind of thing is when that comes in. And they don't want, we already are limited. You can always already fly through the verse and not see a single person. They definitely want to increase the numbers of players per server in order to allow for people spread out across Pyro. For HSR anyways, yeah. Now in California, it'll take a bit, yeah. Oh, the puzzle box is in the Banu Defender commercial? Yeah, I remember seeing that. I don't know if that's a Defender, if that's a Banu puzzle box, or if that's a Hadesian puzzle box. It might be. I want to say it's a Hadesian puzzle box, but we'll see. It's hardly even begun, yeah. Room Worlds, I think they're already blew through the money for the high-speed rail, anyways. Yeah, because they had to do a bunch of surveys for it, and then they said, because the original plan for the high-speed rail for California was from Oakland or San Francisco all the way down to LA, and then they kind of scaled it back, and they were going to go from like San Jose down to like Bakersfield, I want to say, something like that. You'd have to travel to those two locations and then travel away from them, which doesn't make any sense, you know. Just build from Oakland to LA. You cut down a lot of traffic and it would increase. The whole concept was a good idea. Build a high-speed rail system between Oakland and LA, or San Francisco and LA, because people use that for commute on a regular basis, because some people need people live in San Francisco and commute down to LA, and vice versa. It would also allow for tourists to come back and forth. That was pitched at for us as, you know. Sorry, grew up in California, lived the first 18 years of my life in California, more or less. I lived some years in England and some years in Spain when I was younger, and then I lived since I've turned 18. I've lived in mostly in Tennessee and Texas, so I've had a very interesting life. Want to know about space farming? I do too. I'd like to see more about that. Too highly populated? Yeah. On my laptop? Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Black. Enough talking about that. So, again, we're working on the smuggling. I'm working on the smuggling video. That should be out this week. And then the video after that is likely going to be a primer on the Tavaran. No, not the Tavaran. It's going to be a primer on the alien species. I wrote it already, which just kind of breaks down what each species is. There some very basics. This is going to be part of the Guide to Star Citizen lore. It's essentially a quick reference for the major factions, which includes the political parties of the UEE, the Tavaran, or not the Tavaran, political parties of the UEE, the Banu, the Xi'an, and the Vandul. And I don't have the Tavaran because technically the Tavaran are part of the UEE, and I'm also going to do a separate video that talks about the Tavaran, a little bit about their past and a lot about their current status separately, because they're kind of in a weird place. They both exist outside of the UEE and within the UEE. So. Look in the background. All right. Will there be security drone play and not just salvaging? I think that's the plan, Solotherm. Like anything, I can imagine security drones being a thing. I can imagine mining drones, salvage drones, repair, refuel, rearm, just drones for anything. Because, but it's not going to be automated. You'll definitely have to have players flying them around. Think of them as like mini stumpcraft. Combat drones would be something like 2 size 1s and maybe some missiles, or like some rockets, you know. Whew. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us here tonight here at the Astropub. If you guys enjoyed this, please hit that follow button or subscribe to us. If you guys have any questions or comments, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that. There's a little comments thing down below. I like to come in and hang out. Remember that we are currently giving away a Prospector !June for those of you guys here in Twitch chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, down very below at the top pinned comment, there is a link to it. You just got to be following us on Twitter, following us on YouTube, or subscribe to us on YouTube, and following us on Twitch. Those are the only 3 things you have to do, all free. Everything else, you can do some other things to help out, increase your chances. We're also still giving away a Cutlass Blue, courtesy of CIG. It's not in the pinned comment, but it will be there shortly. But it's the same one we've been doing in the past. So, and that's !Cutlass for those of you guys in Twitch chat. Thank you guys again for hanging out with us. Love your faces, and like I say every time, hope to see you guys again soon. I hope to see you someday in the black. And for those of you guys with Galactic Historian, remember, ex Historia ad Astra. Later, guys.
The secret end screen is purple. Type out purple in the comments below. By the way, the UEE is actually run by secret mole people from the planet Nepsulon. Nepsulon. Purple Nepsulon. Type that out in the comments below, and you will get a shout out at the beginning of the captain's table.
Love you guys' face. You want this music finish and we'll get done.